time for another important question. Since Bayt al-Maqdis is on the Abyssinian highlands, the Tur, does this imply that Jerusalem has to be there as well? You might be surprised to know that in the heart of the Abyssinian highlands and in one of the most sacred cities in Christianity, known as Lalibela, there are 11 temples, or now churches, carved in the rocks. Together, they represent the biggest compound of harmonious temples in the world, and since 1978, they are considered UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The age of these temples, or now churches, is unknown, but the local stories say that they started to carve them in the age of King Lalibela, who ruled Abyssinia at the beginning of the 13th century. African archaeologists and scholars, however, have proved that the carving started centuries before that, as they have found archaeological evidences and digging tools dating back to centuries BC. They were named Lalibela in the memory of King Lalibela. These temples, or churches, are structured in a totally contradictory way to other buildings in the world. They were not built from bottom to top. In fact, they were carved out from top to bottom, and church scholars say there are no other buildings like these churches anywhere else in the world. The 11 churches are connected in two different groups through passages or tunnels 11 meters deep and separated by a river called the Jordan. The northern side of the Jordan River is the location of the Church of Bayt Medani Alem, House of Saviour of the World, Bayt Mariam, House of Mary, Bayt Maskal, House of the Cross, Bayt Danagal, House of Virgins, and Bayt Golgotha Michael, House of Golgotha Michael. The southern side of the Jordan River is the location of Bayt Emmanuel, House of Emmanuel, Bayt Kedus Mercurius, House of the Saint Mercurius, Bayt Abba Libano, House of Abba Libanos, Bayt Gabriel Raphael, House of Gabriel Raphael, Bayt Lechem, House of Holy Bread, and Bayt Georgis, House of St. George. So what does this have to do with Jerusalem? Well, all the churches' names that you've just heard in one of the most sacred cities in the heart of Abyssinian highlands surrounding the Jordan River are the same exact names of churches currently in the city of Jerusalem. Would this make people say that Lalibela city, located in the heat of the Abyssinian highlands, is called the New Jerusalem, since it was copied from Jerusalem, or Shalem? That's not the reality. The reality, based on what archaeologists have found during an excavation, is that these buildings go back centuries before Christ. In other words, this is the old Jerusalem and not the new one that Solomon himself built, as specified in the Torah. A unique characteristic in these temples is that waterways pass underneath them and they are always flowing and circulating. You can drink from them or use the water for ablutions while you're inside the temples. Another mysterious and astonishing fact about these temples. Archaeologists consider the carving of these temples or churches to be an impossible mission to accomplish. In order to carve these rocks, you would have needed very solid chisels made of diamond, and if you'd just worked with the basic equipment available back then, you simply would not have been able to build anything close to these structures. The Abyssinian rumours say that the angels descended from the heavens and built the temples under divine orders, and indeed, the archaeologists say that these structures are superhuman. Muslims perceive this superhuman nature in a different way. The Quran says that God helped Solomon to build the temples, and to Solomon there were jinns that worked in front of him by the leave of his Lord, and if any of them turned aside from our command, we made him taste of the penalty of the blazing fire. Since such structures are considered to be impossible or beyond the capability of man, then a better explanation is that Solomon built them because he's the one who made Jerusalem, as stated in the Torah. As for current Jerusalem, there are no superhuman temples there that would exceed the capabilities of a human in any era. The way these temples were carved in the rocks is miraculous, with every single detail shaped in a very unique way. It's interesting that all the structures and temples were built in cubical shapes carved in the rocks, and what's even more surprising is that the front wall of every single one of these cubes is facing the northeast in a perpendicular form to the Kaaba. They're all perpendicular to the Al-Yamani corner of the Kaaba, similar to Bayt al-Maqdis or the Yeha temple. This proves the verse in Holy Quran which says the first sanctuary appointed for mankind was that at Bakra, means Kaaba, a blessed place, a guidance for the peoples. These temples in Jerusalem, in the heart of the Abyssinian highlands, have been the centre of pilgrimage for Abyssinian Christians since the very old ages until now. They differ from Coptic or other Christian denominations in that during their pilgrimage they wear white, exactly like Muslims. Interestingly, they also do not eat pork, and, as mentioned before, their prostration is similar to Muslims. It's worth noting that the pilgrimage to the churches performed by the Abyssinians took place even before the revelation of Islam, because in Surat al-Fil it tells us the story of the army of the Abyssinian Abraha that was commanded by the Abyssinian king at the time to demolish the Kaaba so that people would not perform pilgrimage to the Kaaba and would stay away from it and would instead go to Abyssinia. He wanted to confirm to the Arabs at the time that Abyssinia is the Qibla, direction of prayer, and the centre of pilgrimage is not the Kaaba in Mecca that was surrounded by idols at the time. Another important piece of information is that Christianity entered all Africa, including Egypt, through European colonization of the African continent, but Abyssinia was different as Christianity was there before Europe. Now let's summarise a few things we've learned and apply them to what we know to make better sense of this knowledge. Since Israelites are from Bedouin Yemen, the southern Arabian Peninsula, they're a dark-skinned population, which establishes that Jacob and Joseph also had dark skin. And since Moses was born to Israelite parents, then Moses was dark-skinned. Now Beit al-Maqdis, Jerusalem and Bethlehem are on the Abyssinian highlands where Moses settled with the Israelites, and then Jesus, who was sent as a prophet to the Israelites after Moses was born in Bethlehem in Abyssinia. This establishes that Jesus was dark-skinned, born to Mary, a dark-skinned mother. Jesus was not a European person with blue eyes, straight hair and Caucasian features, as featured in many of today's churches. It's obvious that all those prophets, including Jesus, had very dark skin and their hair was black and curly. They had a southern Arabian, Abyssinian type of feature because, as the Quran said, offspring one of the other and God is hearing, knowing. And another verse, God chose Adam, Noah, the family of Ibrahim and the family of Imran above the nations, offspring one of the other, and God is hearing, knowing. Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Jesus all shared the same language, which is the South Arabian language spoken by southern Misr, Abyssinia and Yemen. Since all the prophets come from the lineage of Adam, these are they on whom Allah bestowed favours from among the prophets of the seed of Adam. Then do not forget that Adam is the father of humanity and that scientists have proven that the Abyssinian highlands is the cradle of humanity, as they found there the very first human being to walk on the surface of the earth. According to DNA tests, they prove that the origins of humanity were black. Interestingly, the only prophet who had lighter skin was the prophet Muhammad, because he was not from the southern area, he was from the northern Arabian Peninsula. And his language was the Fusha Arabic, which was the language of the north. Can we further prove all this? Go back to the verses of Surat at-Tur, by the Tur, and the book written in organised lines on an unrolled goat skin, and by the house frequented, and by the roof exalted, and by the Bahr kept filled, or the large body of water kept filled. And let's search in the Tur or the Abyssinian highlands for the book written in organised lines on an unrolled goat skin. You will find the secret in this book. In the heart of the Abyssinian highlands, the Tur, and inside of the city of Aksua, now called Aksum in Tigray, the oldest Bible on earth has been discovered. The writing is organised in fine letters in the Abyssinian language Giaz, a South Arabian language, as if it was written by a typewriter, and in beautiful colours as if it was written recently. While its pages are straight and not flipped, the pages of the Bible are made from dried goat skin, or rek as it is called in Arabic. This is very significant because the skin of the goat, or rek, is an organic material that contains carbon atoms which can be recognised by radiated carbon testing to clearly identify the age of the document. According to these tests, it is the oldest Bible in the world, dating back to 330 AD, or more than 2,000 years. The local monks believe that this book holds magic properties. It has been preserved as one book without any damage or deterioration to the beauty of its writings and colours over time. Despite the Italian colonisation of Abyssinia and a fire in the church, the book is still perfectly preserved. You'll find in this book 3 important pieces of information. First, the Jerusalem Temple is located in the Abyssinian highlands, the Tur. The theologians Judas Mackenzie and Francis Watson have deciphered the oldest Bible, the Bible of the Abyssinian highlands, the Tur. And while exploring the pictures in the Bible, they came across a very famous one that's present in every Bible throughout history, the picture of the Jerusalem Temple. And to their surprise, this picture of the Jerusalem Temple is the Abyssinian Temple. The picture of the Abyssinian temple is well known for its square, wide-framed blind windows subdivided by a cross that are later found on the rock-cut churches at Lalibela. And the windows on this building are similar to Aksumite and later Ethiopian architecture. However, it's notable that the columns do not have the Attic bases used on their frames and in Roman and late antique architecture on Corinthian columns. Rather, close inspection reveals that they have plain, stepped bases. It's a unique structure to the Lalibela Abyssinian temples, and the picture included the waterways that are passing under the Jerusalem temple that look identical to the real one. Second, in this book, which has been proved by carbon dating to be the oldest Bible on earth, is a picture of Jesus as a dark-skinned person with curly dark hair, and not the Caucasian that is present in many other churches. Also, the pictures of Mary show her as a dark African woman, different from the pictures of Mary elsewhere. This piece of information is also proved by forensic medicine in a study performed by a specialist in medical drawings and forensic medicine, Richard Neve. He examined 3 Semite skulls for the Israelis using the latest in medical scanning technologies. Neve was able to depict the closest and most accurate illustration of Jesus. The illustration, as you can see, is for a tanned man with dark curly hair and with facial features similar to Southern Arabian features. So since there have never been any actual drawings of Jesus discovered, scientists are calling this the most realistic drawing of Jesus ever created. Third, the journey of the Holy Family started from the south, from Abyssinia, passing through Sudan by the valley of the Nile up until it reached Asyut in Egypt as we know it today. The Holy Family established the first worship place, which is now known as the Church of Miriam in Deir al-Marek in Asyut. It is not a surprise that this church now holds significant status around the world, because it is the only church built by Jesus himself and is obviously considered a tourist attraction. The Holy Family lived in Asyut for 6 months and 10 days, which is considered the longest time they spent in one place during their journey in Misr, which means Egypt plus Sudan, and until the Abyssinian highlands where the river Nile originates. The essence of the problem is replacing Misr in recent Bibles with Egypt as we know it today. Hence, the journey of the Holy Family had to follow the borders of Egypt, which restricted the journey to start at Palestine, passing through the Sinai Desert and northern Egypt, ending in Asyut, and a return journey from Asyut to Palestine. It also becomes difficult to comprehend how the Holy Family managed to travel through the hardships of the deserts in Sinai and Palestine on the back of donkeys, instead of believing that they'd had a seamless journey along the Nile Valley, passing through greenery and fertile lands with abundant water and crops in their paths from Abyssinia all the way to Asyut. The Vatican's narrative around the Holy Family's journey from Palestine to Asyut might not be as convincing as the story documented in the oldest Bible, written more than 2,000 years ago and preserved in the Abyssinian highlands, the Torah. This book, which has been proved by carbon dating to be the oldest Bible on earth, states that the trip started from Abyssinia all the way to Asyut and back to Abyssinia. Precisely, it's stated where it ended at the land of Tana in the Abyssinian Torah.
The one common thing between the story of the Vatican and the one in the Bible is this place where the Holy Family stayed, in Asyut, for the duration of 6 months and 10 days. However, if you search on Google Earth, you will find that the front wall of the Church of Mary in Asyut is perpendicular to the northern corner of the Temple of Yeha, Beit el-Maqdis, where the Ark of Covenant was preserved in the city of Aksua, now called Aksum in Tigray. Following this tradition, churches everywhere are supposed to face the Temple of Yeha. The fact that the Bible that is preserved in Abyssinian highlands, the Torah, goes back to more than 2,000 years ago proves that it is the original biblical source. All the current translations to different languages were done from a Greek Bible, which was originally translated from the original Hebrew Bible. That said, the Southern Arabian language in which the oldest Bible has been written is way older than the Hebrew language. It is the language of the first humans and first civilizations.
Another argument that is worth reflecting upon is that in the West we use Jesus to refer to the Christ, but its true origins come from the Arabic name Isa, not from the Hebrew names Yeshua or Yesua. The name Jesus is only around 400 years old. Simply, the origins of Jesus in Greek is Iesous, and this is the name written in the Old Testament in Greek. The letter J has been added recently to the English language in the 15th century, and all the popular nouns that start with the letter I and or Y have been changed to the letter J. And that's why many words have changed from the Old to the New Testament. For example, Ursulum in the Old Testament became Jerusalem in the New Testament, Ordon in the Old Testament became Jordan in the New Testament, and Isus became Jesus. This 15th century change led to significant confusion because a popular noun should be the same in any language, so Tokyo is Tokyo in any language, and the same applies to all nouns. The addition of the letter J in the 15th century distanced us from identifying with Isus, the real name for Jesus, which in Arabic is Iyesa. If you transliterate Isus into Arabic, it will be Iesus or Iesa, but what about the extra S at the end? Well, Iesus is written in Greek, and in Greek you add S at the end of masculine popular names. If a person is talking about himself, the genitive, he says his name without an S, but if someone else is talking about him, referring to him, i.e. the nominative, you would add an S, like Papadopoulou and Papadopoulos. Thus you can remove the S at the end of Iesus in Greek, and it will be Iesu, which is Iesa in Arabic. That implies that Christians in the West pronounce the name of Jesus the same as Muslims, except that they cannot pronounce the letter Ain, which for them is an I, and as we've mentioned, that's been recently exchanged to a J.
As for Christians in the East, they use the name Yeshua. The origins of Yeshua are from the Hebrew scriptures referring to Yeshua. Yeshua is composed of two words, Yahweh, which is the God of the Jews, and the other is Shua, an adjective meaning the saving Jewish God. It is important to note that Yahweh is an exclusive God for Jews as the chosen people. Allah in Hebrew is called Elohim, who is God of mankind. That said, Yeshua is not a name for the Christ. Rather, it is an adjective meaning the Savior, or to be more specific, the saving God of the Jews. In a nutshell, the West pronounces the name of the Christ Asiya, or Jesus, similar to the Muslim, while Christians in the East, they call the Christ by a completely different name that is rooted in Hebrew. While Christians in the East are more influenced by Yahweh, the God of the Jews, the Christians in the West were keen on differentiating themselves from Judaism.
There are many facts in life that we take as a given. If you ask your average Azriel, Joe or Mo about verifying these facts, they probably won't know how to. But that said, if you try to shake the history that's passed to us through generations, we can easily get offended. Our goal here in There Is No Clash, though, is to question, apply logic and seek authentic explanations of things that we currently take for granted. Based on our research, there is compelling evidence that Abyssinia is the land of the prophets, all the way from Adam to Isa. It is where we have Al-Tur, or the Tower Plateau, and the Temple of Yeha, Beit ul-Maqdis, or Al-Beit al-Mamur, in the Abyssinian highlands.